Is there a secret place that you should do your weekly planning at? Should you do it in a bunker, at a coffee shop, in your backyard, by yourself with a big group of people? What, Shane, is the most optimal time and place to do my weekly planning, and where should it happen? The answer today may shock you.
Welcome to this week's plan, where we help you transform possibility into reality. We help you accomplish the right things each week, so you can enjoy a more balanced life, both personally and professionally. Join in as we share real-world, battle-tested strategies and techniques to help you center your focus, accelerate your results, and improve your momentum to avoid being overwhelmed. This isn't just about making it through the week. It's about fitting in all the right things. Now here's the host of this week's plan, Shane Fielder.
Welcome back. Previously on episode 5 of this week's plan, we covered a question that burns in a lot of people's mind. They ask me all the time. They say, well, when should I be doing my weekly planning? I mean, when is the best time to do my weekly planning? So if you missed that, make sure you go back and catch that, because we answered that with 5 possibilities for you. 5 possibilities of when you can do your weekly planning. I share with you my favorite, and I share the one that I detest the most, the one that turns me off the most after many years of horrible trial and error. So if you need to understand that, go back to that episode. And if you want to find out what my favorite and my least favorite is, you'll get that there as well. And in that episode as well, I also encourage you to try out a social experiment and see how it goes for you. Where is the best place to plan my week? Where should I be planning my week out? I got you covered today. We have 3 possible answers. The first is clocks and calendars. Everything happens in clocks and calendars. Number 2, we're going to talk about the digital landscape and digital planners and where you should be planning in there. And number 3, we're going to cover the analog, old school style planners. Yes, people still write with ink on paper. It is true. First question for you though is vanilla or sundae? Are you a vanilla ice cream type of person? You just love to sit down with a bowl of vanilla ice cream and just enjoy it and savor it? Or are you a sundae kind of person where you want 3 or 4 different types of ice cream and toppings and whipped cream, and you just load it up with anything possible that would fit in the bowl? The answer to that's going to tell you, are you a person of variety or a person of consistency? That is going to answer or give us a clue to answering where you should be doing your weekly planning. Now, the physical place of where you should do your weekly planning largely depends on you. You can do it at your desk. You can do it at a coffee shop. You can do it in an airplane. You can do it on the back of an envelope or a napkin. You can get all high tech and fancy. The key out of all of those options is to make the space work for you. I'll say that again, make the space work for you. Let's dive into number 1, clocks and calendars. Let's all agree for a minute that all productivity, all personal, professional effectiveness comes down to clocks and calendars. There's nothing you do in this world that isn't found in a clock or in a calendar. Think about it. The unit of time in a specific block or for a duration of time exists in a clock. That clock measures 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, 3 hours, and it just keeps going on. And we are all blessed with the same equivalency of 24 hours a day on this earth. The second unit of time is in a place. It's the place that something happens, a specific container, a day, a half day, a week, a month, a quarter, a year. We're really familiar with that. Now, the big challenge is that some people feel that this is a constrictive and restrictive process. They want to be free. They want to have everything I just want to wake up in the morning and do my day as I want. And that's one way to live. And that works for some people that have the luxury of that. Other people need containers. They need spaces and places to be productive, to be highly effective, to be creative, and to actually get something done that's worthwhile. The power goes to the person who makes sense of all of this. The power goes to the person who in advance says, I intend to do this, I want to create this, I want to solve this, and goes out and accomplishes it. So you'll probably end up in this situation running into more scarcity of time. If that's the case for you, it typically means that you have to prioritize differently and you have to become a better negotiator of clocks and calendars. It's really what it comes down to. But when you do that, my friend, you will gain new levels of freedom. And that is really exciting because then you will be able to feel free that on a Thursday afternoon, you want your afternoon to go a certain way. You want to stop working at a certain time. You want to go play. You want to work out. You want to go somewhere. And that freedom will be given to the person that effectively manages and understands the dimensions of clocks and calendars. Number 2 is our digital places and our digital spaces. What I want you to think about today is keeping everything in 1 to 3 digital places. Now, Shane, that is incredibly tough. I have Slack, I have Basecamp, I have Asana, Trello boards, Outlook, Gmail, this mail, that thing, 10 different notes programs. I carry a binder full or a bag full of notes around with me all the time. How on earth are you proposing that I do this? Well, I'm going to tell you that my digital places is Microsoft Outlook and Microsoft OneNote. That's it. Now I'll tack on a bonus. So I have my email, I have my calendar, and then I have my capture device for my notes, which is largely Microsoft OneNote. It's simple and it's effective. Here's the key for you. I never use tasks. I stopped using the task function in Outlook probably about 8 or 9 years ago because I realized that that was just plain silly. And if you want to know why I think that, send me an email and I will be happy to have that conversation with you. But it really is because our brain processes things in a certain way, and we have to understand how our brain moves through things in a logical order. And tasks don't easily fit into clocks and calendars because a task is just a little line in a little computer program somewhere, and it sits in the back of your brain and it irritates your brain. Clocks and calendars is where your brain makes perfect sense of things and says, great, I know that at 1 o'clock on Thursday afternoon, I will be doing the XYZ thing. And I know on Monday morning at 10 a.m., it's time to do the 1, 2, 3 thing. And your brain loves that. And guess what? You love that. And other people love that because it creates dependability. The big thing about digital places is number 1 is it's there to clear your mind. The goal of this process is to clear your mind, free it up, get all the junk out of it, get all the nominal stuff out of it. We want to free our mind for big tasks. We want to create space in our mind for deep work, to really settle in, to really do the work of thinking and creating and problem solving and analyzing. That's what your brain is made for. It's not made to hold 37 things that you got to do 5 years from now. The wins are made and accomplished and gained by not storing stuff in your head and by actually using your brain for what it was designed to do. Now I have a bonus thing that I use called the Idea to Action Planner, and I will link it in the show notes for you so that you can check it out. And there's a little training guide at samuraiinnovation.com, and I'll link it for you. And it's just a simple Microsoft Excel tool that I had custom built for us because it's exactly what it says. It's the Idea to Action Planner. That's where I put a lot of my hardcore, I have this idea and I want to do this sales thing, or I want to do this thing for my dojo members, or I want to do this personal initiative, and I put it in there. And then there's a place and a space and a process to go and sort through it. And that gives my mind a lot of peace of mind, and it gives me clarity, and it also gives me space to then go and use my mind for the things like right now, creating an episode of this week's plan for you. Okay, so that link will be in the description for you, wherever you're catching me. Number 3 is go analog, go old school. Yes, grab your fountain pens, grab your pencil and paper, all whatever works for you. I'm a fountain pen guy. I love fountain pens. They're my favorite because it just tells my brain that when a fountain pen is pulled out and it's put on paper, something serious and something important is about to happen. And I get excited about that. Have you ever had a professional 90-minute deep tissue massage where like the massage therapist just turned you inside out and you almost felt more pain coming out of it than you did going into it, but in the next 24 to 48 hours, man, your muscles felt amazing. Well, that is important. And if you haven't had that, go try one sometime in the future. But if you have, you know what I'm talking about. And the reason why we do those deep tissue massages is to release those hard knots in the muscles and the lactic acid buildup and it's there so that fresh blood can come in and cleanse out those areas and then flush those areas out so that the muscles and the ligaments and everything in that area can be more productive and be stronger going forward. Well, here's the thing. How often do you massage your brain? How often do you massage your brain? Shane, that's silly. Like, do you actually take your hands and I'm not saying massaging your head, I'm saying your brain. And writing with a pencil, a pen, a writing instrument in your hand on paper, to me, that's the equivalent of massaging my brain. It's where free-form thinking can happen. It's where ideas can happen, scribbling. I've had a lot of great ideas happen to me just by creating shapes and lines and figures on the page while I'm thinking through something, because my brain's saying, yes, we're actively engaged. If I'm clickety-clack and I'm tapping it out on a keyboard, it might be a data transfer from my brain to the device digitally, but that analog old school pen to paper has some magical properties that helps your brain. And I mind map. I'm a huge mind mapper. I really encourage you, if you're not a mind mapper, to go try it. People ask me, what's the best mind mapping software? I have a list and I'm happy to give that to people, but I don't use mind mapping software. I use actual hardcore mind maps. And I do my weekly plans on mind map. I do a weekly plan on a tiny half sheet of paper, because I know if it goes past that, if the map has to be bigger than that certain size of paper, it's too much for the week for me. And then I take that and I transfer that on. And I'll get into that later on in season 1 here. But what you want to be thinking about is building a bridge. You want to build a bridge between the analog properties, the digital properties. So what I want you to do is pick a digital or an analog, or maybe even a hybrid purpose. Number 1, have everything together where you start your planning. It's all about clocks and calendars. So make sure, for me, when I do my planning, I have my email open, I have my calendar open, and I have my notes. And those are the 3 things that need to be in the room. The next one is, do what you can to stay consistent. So if the physical place matters to you, then that's important. So some people say, oh, I do better planning at the office. Great. Go to the office, sit at your desk, close the door, turn on some jazz music, classical music, heavy metal, whatever fills your boat. And then whatever sets the environment for you that you can be creative and you can think and get into a flow, set up that environment. Other people say, I need distraction. I need to be sitting in a coffee shop. I need to be somewhere where there's external white noise, because that helps me think better. Great. Go find that environment, put yourself in there, and then go back to last week's episode and pick which day and which play, when you're going to actually do the weekly planning, because that consistency is the key. Next is the don't list, is don't ignore communication with others. Meaning, if you do all your planning in an old school, traditional paper analog planner, then you do have to build a bridge to the digital world. You do have to make sure that in today's worlds, we live in a linked world, which means, like, my calendar is online. You can access my calendar. All I have to do is give you the URL. You can go to my calendar and find out all the times that I'm free. But that means that I have to go into my calendar and block off times that I'm working on projects, so that I don't accidentally get a meeting from Shane booked in there, or Bob or Mary saying, hey, I want to meet you at Thursday at 10 a.m. And guess what? Thursday at 10 a.m. is in my paper planner. It's like, work on this week's planned podcast recording. Well, that's a conflict now, and that's not great. And we're going to talk about that next week a little bit more, about why those conflicts can really affect you. So number 1, you've got to then say, if you're in if you're in an analog planner and you're going to move to a digital planner, all you have to do is just go create the blocks in the digital calendar, so that those blocks are protected, that match up and sync up with your analog calendar. Now, it might take you an extra 5 or 10 minutes step in your weekly plan, but it's worth it, and you can't ignore that. Don't lose critical information. So make sure that if you're carrying around critical stuff in your notebook, sometimes what I do is, the next 2 tools that I use that are really important is the scanner and the camera. And there's stuff that if I'm working on it in a paper format and it's loose, or it's maybe even in my notebook, I might take a picture of it as a backup for a reference point, or I might scan something through the good old printer scanner sitting in my office, and so that automatically then emails to me, or it automatically dumps it into my OneNote or wherever I want it to be digitally, and I now know that I have a backup. So that's an important strategy. At the end of the day, please, don't make it more complicated than it needs to be, because simplicity is the winner. Simplicity is the gateway to consistency. Consistency is the gateway to stacking up more points and more wins, so that you accomplish more. And here at this week's plan, we're all about fitting in the right things into this upcoming week. I want to remind you of an awesome opportunity We have created something here at Samurai Innovation called No Fail Planning Methods. It's a course, and I'm going to give you 8 no fail planning methods that will complement your weekly planning. It will make you a stronger, better, more productive person, a productive professional who wins more. And guess what? The greatest thing is it's complimentary. It's on the house. So all you have to do to claim that access, because you're a dojo member, you're listening to this week's plan, or you're watching me somewhere on video, all you have to do is go to nofailplans.com. Nofailplans.com. I will connect you, I will hook you up, and you will be really, really happy. Activation time, my friend. Where do you feel most creative and productive? Where is that physical place you feel most creative, more productive? Is it that coffee shop, or is it in the library, or is it in a silent room or a special bunker or hideaway location? Plan there. Plan consistently. I introduce you to the idea of a bridge between the digital and the analog world. Build that bridge this week. So what part of your bridge is missing? What part of your bridge is broken? Fix that this weekend. Don't wait 3 weeks to fix it. Fix it this weekend so that you get the win, you get the gain, you get the benefit, you get the growth, and say, hey, I fixed that this weekend. I set up an online notepad, or I synced up my online notes, or I set up a new thing in Outlook, or whatever. So just because I use Outlook and I use OneNote doesn't mean you need to use those tools. You might use Gmail, and you might use something else for your note taking, and that's okay. You might use Evernote. You might use some of the other fine systems that are out there. Just as long as it's simple, it's accessible, and you understand how to use the tool. Fix it this weekend, create a win for yourself. The next one is, what can you cut out? So if you've had 3 or 4 different things going on, and maybe 2 or 3 note-taking things, or maybe you've got a treed, structured task planning system, and you got a note system, and maybe you haven't used the Trello board or whatever, Asana board or Basecamp or whatever, then you have to really ask yourself, is that helping you or is it hurting you? And if it's hurting you, just cut it out for a few weeks and try it out. You probably won't miss it. Make sure you send me in your questions. I want you to be part of the show. So all you have to do is go to thisweeksplan.com. You'll see a nice little black box there. And when you when you fill in that black box, I'll get your question, and make sure it's comprehensive. I had a few questions that were sent in. They were not really easily understandable. People didn't include their name correctly. If that's the case, it gets deleted. It hits the trash can. Just send me a legible question. Let me know who you are, and I'd be happy to feature you on a future episode where your question makes the most sense. Today's question comes to you from Mariana, who is a local Calgarian. So she's a local dojo member, which I'm excited about. Always excited to meet local folks. Mariana asked me, my biggest challenge is related to prioritization. How do I decide what to work on in my limited time available? It's a great question that comes up all the time. So Mariana says, if I work on one thing, I feel guilty about not doing something else on my priority list. Okay. So Mariana, I want you to think about today's episode, today's session here. We've talked about clocks and calendars. So my challenge to you is to take everything that you want to do and just assign it to the clock and calendar. Does it have a duration of time? Does it have a place that it needs to be? It's a simple question, but it will really cut through a lot of the garbage. It'll cut through the confusion. Now, if somebody wants you to be in the same place at 2 times, now we have to negotiate, and we have to figure out a way and say, listen, Bob, you want me at 10 a.m. Sharon wants me at 10 a.m. We've got to do something here. I can't be in 2 places at one time, and you have to be bold enough to be able to go negotiate that out. And I think a lot of people miss the prioritization, because prioritization is not a set it and forget it thing. It's not that you just do it once and then it's item number 7 for the rest of the week or the month or the quarter. That prioritization will shift. And when you get into a flexible state of mind where you realize that those priorities are always evolving and shifting and changing, then it just becomes a lot easier to understand that negotiation is part of the game. And then knowing where your clocks and calendars, everything sits, that will help you out better. Let me know, Mariana, if that helps you really well. Send me an email if you need some more clarification. I'd be happy to help you. In the next episode, coming up next week, we're going to ask you, what do you include in your weekly plan? So we're going to start getting into the recipe and the ingredient list of a great weekly plan and what should be in there and how do you do all that and the structure. And so be on the lookout for that one. And I look forward to seeing your question at this week's plan. All right, forge ahead this week with confidence, the confidence to scale your tools down a little bit. Build a stronger bridge between your digital world and your analog world. It will serve you better. You will become more productive. You will then be able to help the people around you become more productive, and you will push over a lot of dominoes of productivity. And I'm excited to be with you on this journey. Domo arigato.
We appreciate you joining in this episode of This Week's Plan. For more complimentary resources and strategies to help you develop greater work-life harmony, head to samuraiinnovation.com/podcast and become a dojo member when you claim your free resource that's waiting for you. You'll also find more techniques that will leverage your potential and grow your business exclusively at samuraiinnovation.com. We look forward to helping you fit in all the right things on the next episode of This Week's Plan.